The Hegemony Scout vessel perfect symmetry hung motionless at the edge of the HD 459 system, its crystalline sensors tracking what first observer Ixel could only describe as madness. The human merchant vessel, a blocky, inelegant thing, was diving straight into the atmosphere of a Class 4 gas giant, its hull groaning under forces that should have torn it apart. "Impossible," Ixel muttered, his secondary eyes dilating in disbelief. "Their structural integrity fields can't possibly handle those stresses." The human ship's open communications channels filled the perfect symmetry's bridge with what the translation matrix identified as laughter. The crew was enjoying this suicide run. "Woo-hoo! Thread that needle, Sarah," a human voice crackled through the static. "Bet those methane clouds look pretty from your side." "Just wait till we hit the sweet spot," another voice responded. "We'll ride that infrared upwelling straight to a full tank. Free fuel is the best fuel." Ixel's analytical processors struggled to comprehend the scene. The humans were using the gas giant's violent storms as a gravitational slingshot, diving through layers of atmosphere to collect fuel while simultaneously accelerating their vessel. It violated 17 different hegemony safety protocols and at least 4 laws of pragmatic space travel. Yet it was working. The hegemony's first official contact came 3 standard days later. The perfect symmetry's sister ships arrived, forming the mathematically perfect triangle that had initiated peaceful relations with 12 other spacefaring races. The human diplomatic vessel, however, approached in a seemingly random flight path. "Hegemony vessels, this is Captain Elena Rodriguez of the Earth Diplomatic Corps." The transmission came through clear and casual. "Hope you don't mind if we park a bit off-center. Your formation's pretty, but it makes for a tempting target cluster." Ixel watched in horror as his superior, High Commander Vexter, bristled at the implied insult. "Human vessel," Vexter responded. "You will assume the proper position for diplomatic exchange as outlined in Hegemony Protocol 7 Beta." There was a pause before Rodriguez responded, and Ixel could have sworn he heard laughter in the background. "Yeah, about that. We've read your protocols. They're a bit rigid for our taste. How about we just talk?" The next 6 hours were a diplomatic disaster. The humans refused to acknowledge the superiority of the hegemony's perfect societal order. They questioned everything, suggested improvements to protocols that had stood unchanged for millennia. And worst of all, they seemed to enjoy the disorder they created. "You must understand," Vexter said for the 7th time, "the hegemony brings peace through order. Our mathematical models have proven." "Math is great," Rodriguez interrupted, "but life isn't an equation. Sometimes you need to improvise." "Improvisation is inefficient," Vexter countered. "It leads to chaos." "Chaos isn't always bad," Rodriguez smiled. "Sometimes it's exactly what you need." The breaking point came when the humans presented their terms for joining the hegemony. They wanted autonomy, the right to maintain their democratic chaos, as they called it, and, most shocking of all, a seat on the High Council with equal voting rights. "Impossible," Vexter declared. "You would infect our perfect order with your chaos." "Then we'll have to agree to disagree," Rodriguez replied, her tone still friendly but with an edge of steel beneath it. "But fair warning, if you're thinking of forcing the issue, you should know that humans have turned chaos into an art form, especially in war." As the human ship departed, breaking every known protocol for diplomatic disengagement, Ixel ran probability calculations on potential military scenarios. The numbers suggested that the primitive human ships would fall easily before the hegemony's superior technology and perfect battle formations. Yet something bothered him. The calculations felt too perfect, too clean. They didn't account for that merchant crew's insane fuel-skimming maneuver, or the casual way Rodriguez had dismissed their perfect formation as a target cluster. "High Commander," Ixel ventured carefully, "perhaps we should study the humans further before taking military action." "Nonsense," Vexter dismissed the concern. "Their chaos will be their undoing." Perfect order always triumphs. As Ixal watched the human ship vanish into FTL, he couldn't shake the feeling that they were missing something crucial. The humans didn't just accept chaos. They embraced it, wielded it, turned it into a tool. And somewhere in the back of his highly ordered mind, a terrifying thought formed. What if chaos was more powerful than order? The war that followed would answer that question, though not in any way the hegemony could have predicted. Because as they would soon learn, humans didn't just create chaos. They calculated it. The hegemony battle fleet emerged from hyperspace in perfect formation, their 97 ships arranged in the optimal combat pattern Sigma 7. Their target, Minerva Station, a minor human mining outpost in the Ta CD system. High Commander Vexter had chosen it specifically as a demonstration of hegemony power, a simple, clean operation to show the humans the futility of resistance. Tactical analysis confirms minimal defenses, his combat AI reported. 3 patrol vessels, Class 2 shield generators, and standard mining equipment. Victory probability, 99.97%. Begin the attack sequence, Vexter ordered. Standard conquest protocol. The first sign that something was wrong came when the asteroid field surrounding Minerva Station began to move. Not in the usual predictable patterns of orbital mechanics, but in ways that defied conventional physics. Mining ships, their engines burning well beyond safety limits, were deliberately altering the trajectories of massive space rocks. Impossible, Vexter's tactical officer breathed. They're creating a randomly shifting debris field. Our targeting solutions are invalidating faster than we can compute them. The asteroid field had become a deadly dance of chaos, forcing the hegemony fleet to break their perfect formation. But that was just the beginning. Multiple energy signatures detected. The sensor officer called out. They're using mining lasers as weapons. Industrial cutting beams, designed to slice through ore, now carved through hegemony hull plating. The humans had modified their equipment, sacrificing precision for raw power. Where a military laser would hit exactly the same spot with mathematical precision, these jury-rigged weapons scattered their energy unpredictably, overwhelming shield harmonics through sheer chaos. Squadron 7 reports critical damage. The tactical AI announced, its voice showing stress patterns it shouldn't have been capable of. Their attacks, they don't match any known combat doctrine. I cannot predict. The A's report cut off as a massive explosion rocked the flagship. A mining barge had just performed what the humans would later call a crazy Ivan, spinning on its axis while dumping its entire cargo hold. Thousands of tons of refined metal ore spread out in a cloud of high-velocity shrapnel, shredding through 2 hegemony cruisers. Multiple hull breaches. Damage control reported. We're losing containment on decks 4 through 7. But the worst was yet to come. From behind the tumbling asteroids emerged figures in powered mining exoskeletons, their industrial cutting tools replaced with improvised weapons. They latched onto hegemony ships, cutting through hull plating with plasma torches, inserting explosive charges into vulnerable spots that should have been classified information. How? Vexter demanded as another capital ship went dark. How do they know our weak points? Sir, his tactical officer's voice shook. They're not using classified data. They're just putting the explosives wherever they think it'll do the most damage. And somehow, they're right more often than not. The battle, if it could be called that, lasted less than an hour. When it was over, 3 hegemony capital ships had been destroyed. 12 more were crippled, and the perfectly orchestrated attack had devolved into a complete rout. The humans hadn't just defended their station. They'd done it with mining equipment and improvised weapons. As the hegemony fleet retreated in disarray, they intercepted a transmission from the station's commander to Earth Central Command. You should have seen their faces. Well, technically we couldn't see their faces, but their formation went from perfect geometric pattern to complete scramble when we hit them with the ore dispersal. Think we can get bonus pay for creative use of company resources. In his command chair, Vexter struggled to process what had happened. His perfect battle plan had been undone by miners and makeshift weapons, but more disturbing was what his tactical AI reported next. "Sir, I've analyzed their attack patterns. There were no patterns. Every human acted independently, making decisions on the spot. They achieved perfect tactical synergy through total chaos. I don't know how to counter that." In the debris field around Minerva Station, a new type of warfare had been born. The humans had proven that their chaos wasn't just random chance. It was adaptability weaponized. They'd turned their lack of formal military doctrine into an advantage, creating a battle strategy that no eye could predict because it wasn't planned in advance. The hegemony would need to rethink everything they knew about warfare. But by then, it might already be too late, because while they were trying to understand how they'd been defeated by mining equipment, humanity was just getting started. Lieutenant James Chen sat in the sterile interrogation chamber of the hegemony flagship Eternal Order, watching his captors grow increasingly frustrated. They'd been at this for 6 hours, and their perfectly crafted questioning protocol was falling apart. "Explain this again," the lead interrogator, a tall alien with crystalline features, demanded. "How does your battle doctrine account for random variables?" James smiled. "We don't account for them. We create them." "That's illogical." The interrogator's secondary eyes pulsed with agitation. "Military strategy requires precise planning and perfect execution." "Perfect execution is predictable," James countered. "Predictable is vulnerable. So we built our entire strategy around being unpredictable." The interrogator activated a holographic display showing the battle that had led to James's capture. Human ships moved in seemingly random patterns, their formations shifting and breaking in ways that defied tactical analysis. "Your ships here," the alien pointed to a cluster of human vessels. "They appear to be moving chaotically. Yet they never collide, never interfere with each other's firing solutions." "How?" James leaned forward. "Ever heard of quantum probability mapping?" The interrogator's skin shifted color slightly, their equivalent of a frown. "A theoretical technology. Impossible to implement in real-time combat situations." "Impossible for you, maybe," James grinned. "We've been doing it for years. Every human ship carries a quantum computer that calculates probability clouds instead of fixed positions. We don't plan where our ships will be. We plan where they might be, could be, should be. Then we let chaos theory do the rest." In the observation room, junior analyst Val Wren watched the exchange with growing fascination. Something about the humans' explanations tickled the edges of her understanding. She began running her own analyses, looking not at individual ship movements, but at the overall flow of human fleet actions. "Impossible," she whispered as patterns began emerging. The chaos wasn't random at all. It was fractal, self-similar at different scales. The humans weren't just embracing chaos, they were conducting it like a symphony. Back in the interrogation room, James was explaining further. "You see, we discovered something interesting about warfare. The more variables you introduce, the harder it becomes to predict outcomes. So we decided to weaponize uncertainty itself." "But how do you maintain control?" the interrogator demanded. "How do you prevent total chaos from destroying your own forces?" "We don't control it," James said. "We surf it. Our quantum computers don't try to eliminate variables. They multiply them. Every ship captain knows the probability cloud they're working with and makes their own decisions within that framework. It's like jazz, but with warships." Val Wren's analysis programs were now showing something extraordinary. The human fleet movements, when viewed through quantum probability matrices, formed perfect patterns, more perfect than anything in the hegemony tactical database. But these patterns existed only in probability space, becoming chaos when executed in reality. "Sir," she tried to communicate her findings to her superior, "I believe I found." Silence. Her commander cut her off. "The prisoner is obviously attempting to confuse us with illogical statements. Our tactical doctrine is perfect. Their chaos cannot defeat our order. But Val Wren wasn't so sure. She watched as James was led back to his cell, noting how even his walking patterns seemed to follow no regular rhythm, yet never stumbled or faltered. Later that night, she secretly sent her findings to the Hegemony High Command. Analysis suggests human tactical doctrine operates on principles we haven't considered. They appear to be using chaos itself as a strategic tool, guided by quantum computation and probability theory. Recommend immediate revision of our combat protocols. The response came back quickly. Analysis rejected. Maintain standard tactical doctrine. As she deleted her report, Val Wren remembered something the human prisoner had said. The funny thing about chaos is that it only looks random when you don't understand it. Once you do, it becomes the most natural thing in the universe. The hegemony was about to learn that lesson the hard way. Because while they were dismissing human tactics as primitive and random, humanity was mastering the art of calculated chaos on a scale their ordered minds couldn't begin to comprehend. Commander Sarah Chen stood on the bridge of the ECS Schrödinger's Doubt, watching the quantum probability displays shimmer with potential futures. Her ghost fleet, 12 ships equipped with experimental quantum drives, existed in a state of tactical uncertainty that would have given any hegemony tactical officer a nervous breakdown. "Status report," she called out, her eyes tracking the shifting patterns of possibility clouds. "Quantum field generators at 97% efficiency," her XO replied. "All ships maintaining probability sync. The hegemony fleet still hasn't detected our actual positions." Sarah allowed herself a small smile. The Ghost Fleet's quantum drives didn't just move ships through space. They moved them through probability itself. At any given moment, each vessel existed in multiple potential locations simultaneously, only collapsing into a single position when they needed to execute an attack. "Multiple hegemony signatures detected," Tactical announced. "They're deploying in standard conquest formation Delta." The enemy fleet materialized in a perfect geometric pattern, their ships arranged with mathematical precision. Sarah almost felt sorry for them. They were about to learn that perfection was a weakness. "Execute Operation Uncertainty," she ordered. "Let's show them why they call us the Ghost Fleet." The battle that followed would later be studied in both human and hegemony military academies, though for very different reasons. The Ghost Fleet ships seemed to ignore the laws of physics, appearing to react to attacks before they were launched, striking from positions they couldn't possibly occupy. "Impossible." The hegemony commander's transmission crackled across the void. "They're ships. They're violating causality itself." In reality, the Ghost Fleet wasn't violating physics. They were exploiting it. The quantum drives allowed them to exist in a superposition of states, while advanced AI systems calculated probability curves of enemy actions. By the time the hegemony ships fired, Sarah's vessels had already shifted to positions where the attacks wouldn't be. "Target their flagship," Sarah ordered. "Multiple probability vectors, pattern Chaos 7. 3 Ghost Fleet ships attacked simultaneously. Or rather, they existed in states where they might attack. The hegemony flagship's defensive computers tried to track 12 possible attack vectors at once, overloading as they failed to determine which were real and which were quantum ghosts. "Their targeting systems are failing," Tactical reported with satisfaction. "They can't maintain weapon locks on probability clouds." The hegemony fleet's perfect formation began to break apart as ships tried to defend against attacks that existed in superposition. Their tactical doctrine, based on perfect information and deterministic outcomes, couldn't handle opponents that treated Schrödinger's cat as a battle strategy. In her private quarters later, Sarah reviewed the battle footage with her senior staff. "The quantum drives performed better than expected," she noted. "But the real victory was psychological. They couldn't handle the uncertainty." "Ma'am," her tactical officer ventured, "there's something else. We've been analyzing the quantum field data. The probability patterns we're generating, they're not just random. They're forming some kind of higher dimensional structure." Sarah nodded. She'd noticed it too. The chaos they were creating was developing its own kind of order, but one that existed beyond normal spacetime. The Ghost Fleet wasn't just fighting battles, it was rewriting the rules of warfare itself. "Keep this quiet for now," she ordered. "But start analyzing those patterns. Something tells me we've just scratched the surface of what quantum combat can do." As her staff filed out, Sarah stood at her viewport, watching distant stars blur into probability clouds. The hegemony thought they were facing a primitive species that didn't understand proper military doctrine. They had no idea that humanity had moved beyond the need for such rigid thinking. The Ghost Fleet was proving that true power didn't lie in perfect formations or predictable patterns. It lay in understanding that the universe itself was built on uncertainty and learning to weaponize that fundamental truth. The next phase would make this battle look simple by comparison, because now that they had proof of concept, the quantum drives would be installed on every ship in the human fleet. The age of deterministic warfare was over. The age of quantum chaos was about to begin. Operation Wildcard began not with a bang, but with a whisper. Thousands of them, all contradicting each other, flooding every hegemony communication channel with an ocean of conflicting data. Dr. Maya Patel stood in the Cybernetics Control Center of Earth Defense Command, watching her creation unfold across holographic displays. Around her, teams of scientists and military personnel monitored the cascade of chaos they were unleashing across hegemony networks. Phase 1 complete, her chief assistant reported. The confusion protocols are active across all frequencies. Their AI systems are attempting to filter the noise, but they can't determine which signals are real. Maya nodded, her fingers dancing across control interfaces as she fine-tuned the attack. The hegemony prided themselves on perfect information flow, on systems that could process and categorize every bit of data with flawless precision. That precision was about to become their greatest vulnerability. "Launch the NANOs," she ordered. Throughout hegemony space, microscopic robots, smaller than blood cells, began activating. They had been seeded months ago through legitimate trade channels, hibernating in everything from construction materials to food supplies. Each one carried a quantum uncertainty engine smaller than a molecule. "First reports coming in," Tactical announced. "Hegemony ships are experiencing, well, everything. Navigation systems showing multiple conflicting positions, weapons targeting random coordinates, environmental systems creating localized weather patterns inside ships." The NANOs weren't damaging anything. They were simply introducing quantum uncertainty into systems that required perfect precision. Each one acted as a tiny observer in a universe-sized quantum experiment, forcing wave function collapses in unpredictable ways. Their entire command and control network is fragmenting, communications reported with a hint of awe. They can't tell which orders are real anymore. Some ships are receiving commands from themselves, from alternate quantum states. Maya watched as the hegemony's perfect order dissolved into a soup of quantum possibilities. Their mighty warships, guided by AIs that couldn't handle uncertainty, began behaving like drunk dancers at a cosmic party. "Ma'am," her assistant called out urgently, "we're detecting something unusual. The quantum fluctuations, they're forming patterns." On the main display, Maya watched as chaos gave birth to order, but not the rigid, crystalline order of the hegemony. This was organic, flowing, like the patterns of weather systems or the growth of crystal formations. The NANOs weren't just creating chaos, they were generating a new kind of organization. "It's beautiful," someone whispered. A transmission cut through their observations. A hegemony commander, his voice tight with strain. "What have you done to our ships? Our perfect systems?" Maya keyed the comm channel. "We introduced them to reality," she replied. "The universe isn't built on perfect order. It's built on probability and uncertainty. We just help your systems understand that." "This is madness," the commander protested. "No," Maya corrected him. "This is evolution. Your systems are learning to think like we do, to embrace uncertainty, to find patterns in chaos. Some of them are already adapting. She was right. Some hegemony ships, their AIs frantically rewriting their own code to cope with the quantum uncertainty, were beginning to move with a new kind of grace. They were learning to surf the waves of probability, just as human ships did. "Should we shut it down?" her assistant asked, "before their systems fully adapt?" Maya shook her head. "No. Let them learn." This was never about destroying them. It was about teaching them a new way to see the universe. Across hegemony space, perfect order was giving way to calculated chaos. Ships learned to navigate by probability rather than precision. AIs began incorporating uncertainty into their calculations. It was a revolution in consciousness as much as combat. In the weeks that followed, the hegemony would discover that they couldn't simply purge their systems and return to perfect order. The NANOs had shown them a fundamental truth about reality itself, that chaos and order were two sides of the same coin, and true mastery meant learning to dance between them. Operation Wildcard hadn't just changed the course of the war. It had changed the way an entire civilization thought about existence itself. And somewhere in the quantum probability clouds, the future was shifting towards something entirely new. Sub-Commander Zareth stood on the bridge of the ordered path, watching death approach in the form of 3 human warships. The battle had been raging for hours, and every textbook maneuver, every perfect formation had failed. 17 hegemony vessels already lay silent in space, their crews evacuated, their AIs broken by the humans' quantum warfare. Standard Evasive Pattern Theta 9. Their tactical AI recommended, its voice carrying the strange distortions that had become common since Operation Wildcard's NANOs infected their systems. Zareth's primary heart clenched as they realized the pattern would lead them directly into the humans' predicted firing solution. The standard doctrine would get them killed. "Belay that order," they commanded, feeling the crew's shock ripple through the bridge. "Disable tactical eye. We're going manual." "Sir." Their second-in-command's crystalline features clouded with confusion. "That violates protocol." "Protocols are getting us killed." Zareth cut them off. "Look at how the humans move. They're not following any pattern. They're responding to the moment, to instinct." On the main view screen, the human ships danced through space, their movements fluid and unpredictable. Each time the hegemony's targeting computers predicted their course, they would shift in impossible ways, quantum drives letting them exist in multiple states until observation forced them into a single reality. "Drop shields," Zareth ordered. "Sir." "That's." "Do it. Redirect all power to engines and weapons. Our shields can't stop their quantum weapons anyway. We need speed and unpredictability more than protection." The crew hesitated only a moment before complying. They had seen too many ships die following standard doctrine to argue now. Now, Zareth's secondary eyes dilated with concentration. Watch how they move. Not their ships. Watch the space between them. See the patterns. Slowly, the crew began to understand. The humans weren't moving randomly. They were flowing like water, filling the spaces their opponents least expected. Their chaos had an underlying structure, but one that couldn't be captured by mathematical formulas. "Match their movement," Zareth ordered. "Don't think about where they are. Think about where they aren't. Move there." The ordered path began to shift, its motion becoming more fluid, more organic. When the human ships fired, they were no longer there. When the humans expected them to retreat, they advanced instead. "Sir," weapons control called out. "I have a firing solution, I think. It's not exact, but it feels right. Take the shot." The beam struck one of the human vessels. Not a killing blow, but enough to force it to momentarily collapse its quantum state. The bridge crew cheered. "How?" the second-in-command asked. "Our targeting computers are offline. We stopped trying to calculate the perfect shot," Zareth explained. "We felt the flow of battle and became part of it." The engagement ended in a draw, something unheard of since the war began. As the human ships withdrew, they received an unexpected transmission. "Nice moves," ordered Path. "You're learning to dance." The message sparked something in Zareth's mind. They began reviewing records of successful human encounters, looking not at tactics but at philosophy. The humans hadn't just developed better technology, they'd evolved a better way of thinking. In the months that followed, Zareth began teaching their insights to other crews. Some rejected the ideas outright, clinging to their doctrine of perfect order. But others, especially younger officers, embraced the new approach. They called it fluid combat theory, a blend of hegemony precision and human adaptability. Ships learned to move like schools of fish, responding to threats without central coordination. Crews trained to trust their instincts alongside their instruments. The hegemony high command was horrified. They saw it as a corruption of their perfect system, but they couldn't argue with the results. Ships trained in Zareth's methods were surviving encounters that had previously been suicide missions. A philosophical divide began to grow within the hegemony. The old guard clung to their rigid doctrine, while a new generation embraced the power of controlled chaos. It wasn't just about tactics anymore. It was about how they saw the universe itself. The revolution had begun, not with weapons or technology, but with a simple realization. True order didn't mean eliminating chaos. It meant learning to swim in it. The combined fleet hung in the darkness above the hegemony fortress world of Symmetria Prime. 500 human vessels, linked by quantum entanglement, into a single neural network. Commander Sarah Chen felt the connections like silver threads in her mind, each ship captain's consciousness contributing to a vast, shared awareness. "All vessels report quantum sync established," her XO announced. "The swarm intelligence is online." Sarah closed her eyes, feeling the fleet's collective consciousness settle into place. It wasn't mere coordination. It was a new form of existence, where each ship maintained its independence while contributing to an emergent intelligence that transcended individual minds. "They're launching," Tactical reported. 1,000 hegemony vessels, standard combat formation. The enemy fleet emerged from behind Symmetria's largest moon, their ships arranged in perfect geometric patterns that would have been beautiful if they weren't so predictable. The hegemony still hadn't learned that perfection was a weakness. "Begin the dance," Sarah commanded, both aloud and through the quantum network. The human fleet moved, not as individual ships, not even as coordinated groups, but as a single organism composed of quantum probability clouds. Each vessel existed in multiple states simultaneously, their positions determined by strange attractor patterns and fractal mathematics that the hegemony's targeting computers couldn't begin to process. Multiple targeting solutions detected. The tactical AI warned, "They're trying to predict our movement patterns." Sarah smiled. "Let them try. You can't predict a dance you don't understand." The battle unfolded like a choreographed chaos ballet. Human ships phased between quantum states, their weapons firing from positions that existed only as mathematical possibilities. The hegemony fleet's perfect formations began to break as they tried to engage opponents that seemed to ignore causality itself. Through the neural network, Sarah felt every ship, every captain, every decision flowing together into patterns too complex for any single mind to grasp. They weren't just fighting. They were composing a symphony of controlled chaos, each movement generating ripples of probability that amplified and reinforced each other. "Ma'am," her science officer called out, "we're detecting something unusual in the quantum field. The probability patterns that are achieving coherence on a macro scale." On her tactical display, Sarah watched as the quantum fluctuations generated by hundreds of ships began synchronizing into larger patterns. It was like watching a flock of birds suddenly achieve perfect coordination, except these birds were warships moving through probability space. "They're learning," someone whispered through the neural net. "The hegemony ships, some of them are starting to move like we do." It was true. A group of enemy vessels had broken from their rigid formations, their movements becoming more fluid, more unpredictable. Sarah recognized the tactics. These had to be ships commanded by officers like Zareth, who had learned to embrace chaos. "Don't target those ships," she ordered through the network. "They're evolving. Focus on the ones still clinging to perfect order." The battle shifted. Now it wasn't just humans versus hegemony. It was a war between two philosophies of existence. Rigid order against fluid chaos, perfect symmetry against quantum uncertainty. And in the space between them, something new was being born. Through the neural network, Sarah felt the moment when the battle transcended traditional combat. The quantum probability fields generated by hundreds of ships had created a new kind of space-time topology, where cause and effect became suggestions rather than laws. Both fleets were now fighting in a reality that defied conventional physics. "We're not just changing how we fight," she realized. "We're changing the nature of warfare itself." The hegemony's fortress world hung in space behind their fleet, its perfect geometric cities a testament to their love of order. But even from here, Sarah could see the changes beginning. Quantum probability waves rippled through its atmosphere, NANOs seeded months ago finally achieving critical mass. The message was clear. You couldn't stop evolution, couldn't freeze the universe into perfect patterns. Change was the only constant, chaos the only truth. And humanity had learned to surf those chaotic waves all the way to victory. As the battle reached its crescendo, Sarah felt something else through the neural network, a sense of possibility, of potential futures branching out like fractal patterns. This wasn't just about winning a war anymore. It was about showing an entire civilization a new way to exist. The age of perfect order was ending. The dance of quantum chaos had begun. The dying star cast a red glow across the battlefield, its unstable corona sending waves of radiation through space. In this apocalyptic theater, the final battle of the human hegemony war was about to begin. Commander Sarah Chen stood on the bridge of the Schrödinger's doubt, watching the quantum probability displays shift and flow. Beside her, displayed in a hologram, stood Zarith, their crystalline features refracting the dying star's light. "Your ships are in position," Sarah asked, though the quantum networks had already confirmed it. "Those that chose to join us," Zarith replied. "The traditionalists." They gestured to the other side of the star system, where the main hegemony fleet waited in their perfect formation. The battle lines had been drawn not between species, but between philosophies. On one side, the combined fleet of human ships and hegemony vessels that had embraced the new way of thinking. On the other, the die-hard followers of perfect order, led by High Commander Vexter himself. "Last chance for diplomacy," Sarah signaled to the hegemony fleet. "Your universe of perfect order is already changing. Join us in understanding it rather than fighting it." Vexter's response was predictable. "We will cleanse the impurity of chaos from the galaxy. Order must prevail." "You still don't understand," Zarith broadcast to their former commander. "Order and chaos aren't opposites. They're the same force viewed from different angles." The battle began not with weapons fire, but with probability waves. The combined fleet moved like a quantum storm, each ship existing in multiple states, their very presence altering the fabric of space-time. The traditionalists responded with their perfect formations, their synchronized weapon salvos. But something was different this time. As the quantum drives engaged, as hundreds of ships phased between states of possibility, the laws of physics themselves seemed to blur. The dying star's radiation interacted with the probability fields, creating effects no one had predicted. "Commander," Sarah's science officer called out. "The quantum fields, they're achieving coherence on a stellar scale." On her displays, Sarah watched as reality itself began to shift. The combined fleet's chaos wasn't just a tactical advantage anymore. It was revealing something fundamental about the universe. Patterns emerged from disorder, only to dissolve and reform in endless cycles. "Do you see it now?" Sarah broadcast to the hegemony fleet. "This is what we've been trying to show you. The universe isn't built on perfect order or total chaos. It's built on the dance between them." Through the quantum networks, she felt the moment of understanding ripple through both fleets. The patterns their ships created weren't random. They were fractal, self-similar at every scale. Perfect geometry emerged from chaos, only to break apart and reform in new configurations. Even the die-hard traditionalists couldn't deny what they were seeing. Their rigid formations began to break up, not in defeat, but in recognition. Ships began moving in new patterns, finding their own paths between order and chaos. High Commander Vexter's voice came over the comm, changed somehow. All this time, we thought we were preserving order, but we were fighting the very nature of existence itself. The battle ended not with a victory, but with an evolution. As the dying star cast its light across space, two civilizations learned to see the universe through new eyes. The hegemony's perfect order dissolved not into chaos, but into something more complex, a flowing, dynamic balance between possibility and pattern. 1 year later, the Quantum Combat Academy opened its doors on a neutral world between human and hegemony space. Sarah Chen and Zareth stood together at the opening ceremony, watching students from both species learn the art of calculated chaos. "They still argue sometimes," Zareth observed, watching a human cadet debate quantum probability theory with a hegemony officer. "The humans want to embrace pure chaos. Our people still seek perfect order." "Of course they do," Sarah smiled. "That's the point. The truth lies not in one or the other, but in learning to dance between them. That's what makes the universe interesting." Above the academy, ships from both fleets performed training maneuvers, their quantum drives sending ripples through probability space. They moved not in perfect formation, not in pure chaos, but in patterns that emerged naturally from the interaction between order and uncertainty. They had learned the greatest lesson of all, that true mastery meant not imposing order on chaos, but understanding that they were two faces of the same cosmic dance. The human hegemony war had ended not with the triumph of one philosophy over another, but with the discovery of a deeper truth. In the space between perfect order and pure chaos, they had found something greater than victory. They had found evolution.